There was a time where I had a sit-down meeting with like the world's biggest motorcycle club, right? And so I owed them maybe 4 or 5 million at the time for some, and they had I think another 4 or 5 million already in cash at a safe house that we would just leave cash at, or not we, but them. And so at the meeting, they had said that they were no longer able to send cannabis over because they were looking for, some bricks of white to convert all the money they had, like the few million I owed and the few million sitting in a house. So they, with that right there, I went ahead and said, well, let me see what I can do, just offering to, help solve that issue, because in the end of the thing, I was just looking to get cannabis, and if it's like stopped for a minute, that affects me, So I spoke to one of my customers who was picking up like Kush from me, and had mentioned that I needed to grab some like bricks of the situation, and so him and I worked together, and like the first time I went ahead and just got, I think, 30 or something like that. Not the first day, but to break the ice, I did one every hour, and then that was cool. So then we started working together, and
You did one every hour.
just because when you first do the very first transaction of something, narcotic nature like that, sometimes the trust issue, if someone feels they're going to get robbed, or it's a setup, or something of that nature, they don't like show up with as many as you really need, right? Like I needed a very substantial amount, and he was like saying, we'll do one at a time until we get comfortable with, that everything's cool and on the up and up. So that's the way it was. I gave him money. My buddy went and bought one, came back. I gave him money, he went and bought more. I think by the end of the day, it took forever to do. But we just did like 5 for the first day, right? And then he was like, it's on now, so tomorrow, whatever you need. And most of the time, this motorcycle club would ask me, we would refer to it as calling it build a pack, right? And so what that might mean is they need 120 bricks by Thursday, and Thursday being, 5 or 6 days away. And when you purchase bricks, you don't purchase them 120 in one day. It's just there's no such thing. I mean, maybe there is, but where I was working with, it was not. And most of the time it comes from like Mexico.
So it's coming fresh, it's getting smuggled in and coming straight
To a safe house in LA. And so when those would come over, they put them in like bumpers of Hondas and various things. So there might be 15, there might be 30, And so what I would do is I would work with these people, and I would end up getting, 100, 120 built up in like a week's time.
So you're being brought 7, 10, 15, 10, 12.
Right. And then, we would have to, they could never be a blank. My customer would never buy a blank. And what a blank is when there's no stamp on it. And so I also had to get stamps approved before I purchase them. There was also like a 24-hour return process.
When you say stamps, what does that mean?
So inside the blow, we would cut a window, and we would cut through the tape or whatever was in there, and you could see an indentation into the blow, and it was all sorts of things. It could be the Nike swoosh, it could be a scorpion, it could be a lot of different things.
Would there be periods of time where, like, for a couple months it was all mostly a couple different symbols, or it was just all over the place?
It was all over the place, actually.
And does that mean it was coming from different manufacturers, basically?
I believe so. Yeah.
And the cocaine can vary in quality even coming out of Mexico.
Correct, yeah. So we would label these either an A, a double A, or a triple A. and my clients would always insist that it's AAA, and they would refer to it as like high heat, because when they would like test it and like cook it or whatever to make sure that it was, like high grade.
Okay, so there you would turn down some kilos.
Exactly.
Did
yes.
you have a little testing kit?
I myself, when I was doing this, I was just orchestrating everyone to do whatever I needed to get done. So I was never physically, other than the very first day that I bought, like one every hour. That was the only time that I was like hands-on and on the scene. Other than that, I told this person go meet that person, and this person do that, and call that guy and do this, and basically was like the puppet master of these people, just directing them where to go and what to do.
And on the Mexican side, were these were Sinaloa people?
Yes.
And your initial contact with them was just through a personal friend?
So there were some people that I was already selling indoor hydroponic kush to, and I would front them consistently. And every now and then he would mention, hey, I have some of this, or a couple times he gave me flavored blow just for like myself if he thought I was going to go out with friends and party, and that was kind of a trip,
What's flavored blow?
So what they do is they take Jell-O, the mix that you make with like, Jell-O, the dessert, and they would wash it into the blow. And so for instance, you could have peppermint, they had banana, they had strawberry, and so the strawberry would be like pink looking blow. The peppermint had like a little bit of color to it, or spearmint, whatever it was. And so I was like tripping when they brought that around. I was like, whoa, this is like some New Jack City. Like this is something like a brand new invention, you know what I mean? But it was just little amounts. It wasn't like, oh, here's a full brick of strawberry blow.
And did people, it didn't change the effect. It just, if you snorted it, you could taste?
You absolutely could taste it. It would run through the back of your throat, and then you could smell it and taste it. And it was...
People liked it, or was it...
Oh, yeah. It was kind of a trip. People definitely got a kick out of it. And it seemed to not enhance it in the way of like the trip, but enhance it of the
entertainment
sensing,
value, yeah.
The visual sense of it and the smell of it.
So you're getting into building these packs. They're only taking AAA. And what sort of volume do you get going in what period of time?
Pretty quickly. It's, like averaging, at least about 100 for the motorcycle club, right?
Every week?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you quickly, just doing a favor, basically helping them money launder, in effect. They add you as a leg to what their weed profits now turn into another item, which they can make yet a bigger markup in Canada. What were you paying for the bricks here, and what do you think they were getting for them in Canada? And mind you, this is 20 years, or this is 20 years ago, right? Or 15 years ago.
Yeah, like 2008, 2010. Yeah. So let me think. What was the price? So I was charging them somewhere around 21 to 23, and sometimes I would expedite the transportation and get it all the way to the border of Canada, and then I would add on more. Or if I was just having the Canadians or other people pick it up in Los Angeles, which was the majority of the time.
And you're buying it, just to be clear, you're buying the stuff with money you owed them for weed.
Correct.
Or money other people owed them.
Right. No, yeah, a little bit, but mainly it was money that I owed, and we referred to it as trading.
So you're getting them, and how much you're selling them to them for between 21 and 23? What are you paying for them?
I wasn't paying much. I was kind of paying around that. I wasn't making very much when I first started, because my initial thing was I thought it was a favor to just alleviate like money they had at a safe house, and that all the money that I owed in the moment, that they would just get rid of all the cash they had here in the States and then take the blow up to Canada. And we refer to that sometimes even as like a wire, an exchange. So I thought it would be just a one-time thing. I didn't think it would be a recurring thing.
Did you feel like you could have said no?
Yeah, I could have, but at the same time, the initial sit-down meeting was, we can no longer send cannabis.
Oh, so they pressured you, I mean, not in a physical sense, but in a business way, like, we know you're in position, you're down there, and we want this stuff.
They didn't even necessarily know. They were kind of putting the feelers out, like, could you or can you? And then once I did that, then it became like, oh, that was cool, can you do it again? And, that wasn't like something I aspired to do. And even so, like, it just felt a little more evil to me,
It did. Okay, so you did have that moral. What was your quandary, or what was your thought process with it?
I looked at the cannabis and I thought cannabis was very like hippie and peace and stuff like that. And then I looked at, the white as something a little more like, I'll just say like even a demonic tendency, that gets brought into it.
Is that something you saw in people or yourself when using it?
Not necessarily. It just felt like, so at one point, not only was I doing this for the motorcycle club, I had 2 other Canadians, and I just, in general conversation, started speaking about what I was doing, and now all of a sudden, I was doing that for 3 separate Canadians, and it became huge. I had what they call like an East Indian individual, and he always wanted 40 or 80 every week or so. And then the motorcycle club, they were working with somebody, and they said, hey, we want to just connect you directly with one of our buddies, and he's the biggest guy up here. And so in my mind, I started calling him like Scarface, because he started saying, can you guarantee me him like 100, 150, like per week or on an average. So
and this is going to what, British Columbia?
Vancouver, yeah.
So it would be safe to say for a period of time,
I was flooding
you were
Vancouver.
the major importer of coke. I mean, it wasn't, you were just part of the conspiracy, but technically you were procuring and sending up probably you were the largest supplier of coke to Vancouver.
For sure.
Wow. And that just happened. That wasn't something you planned on when you got into selling weed.
No, definitely not. And then even, once I did,
was part of it it's got to be such a heady mix with every week millions of dollars and flying places.
It wasn't even so much every week. It was like every hour, every day. It was so encompassing and consuming. So when I spoke...
Oh, right, because you're not getting them in large loads. You're having to...
Yeah, I did it every single day.
Did much of it, they said they wanted AAA, did you have to turn back much?
Yeah, so there was a time where there was a blank got in there, and he was like, hey, we don't ever want to do that again. We'll deal with one being in there, but we're not going to take, nothing without a stamp.
Was the blank not any good, or?
Yeah, most of the time a blank means that it's probably more like whacked up, I guess, or diluted.
But it wasn't fake.
No. I had run across people that I never dealt with, but in a roundabout way, they used somebody one day and they got like seven bricks of pancake mix. And I was like, why didn't you go through me, bro? Like, I could have helped you, and now you just got burned with pancake mix.
And what happened when that happens? What can be done about it? Probably not a lot.
Not a lot. It's kind of gone. My buddy was like, hey, come pick them up and just see what they, and I was like, why would I come pick them up and look at them and just check some pancake mix, you know? And he was like, he started texting me pictures of what they looked like. And they didn't even look like a brick. Like they were so like taped together. They looked more like a fucking throw pillow. And it was just funny, you know? But that was a buddy of mine.
Well, what when you get something like that, you know who you got it from. I mean, what?
Sometimes people do things for the first time, right? And this was like somebody, you know, experimenting, thinking they had, you know, a resource, you know, a supply. And the way that they did it was they park in a parking lot, and when you have a pickup truck, it sometimes has in the bed a toolbox. And on those boxes, you can lock them and unlock them. And the dude said, oh, I'll leave it in that toolbox and have your people go and get it. And when they get it, they think, you know, it's an exchange, and there's no almost face-to-face interaction. They're doing it completely, you know, not meeting one another. And that's one way to get burned too, is when people are so like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, leave it here and I'll leave the key to the car and you bring it back. I used to do that quite a bit, where we would park a car in a parking lot and then leave the key underneath the mat. And then they take the car, unload it, and then drop it back off and leave the key.
And the money is way bulkier than the product, right? Or did you have to get always? Isn't there a problem with getting $100 doesn't that become a hassle? Or would you only accept?
No, I had everything, but for when I would,
well, like $1 million in tens is a very both tens and 20s is.
Well, your peeps out of Detroit would always give me like tons and tons of ones, even, you know. But what I would oftentimes do, I wouldn't always like, how do you say, like transfer that up the food chain sort of thing. Sometimes I would just keep ones and tens for my own personal like gas money and, you know, little.
Yeah, but you're talking about $1 million, like.
No, it wouldn't be $1 million in ones. It might be like a few $1,000s in ones, but yeah, for the most part, my money was always beautiful because I had a machine. And when I would count it, I would always put all the faces going the same direction. And then I bought on the internet all the paper that the bank uses, so I wouldn't use rubber bands. My money came like flat, and it came just wrapped the same way it would at the bank, and it had like paper on it. So it was immaculate. So somebody can't say, oh, it was off and short. And I know, like, no, this money is like perfect. I mean, if you think about it, they had like the golden child of a customer, right? I'm giving them money that just looks like it came from a bank, perfectly done. It's not folded in half, and, you know, all these flat with, you know, different rubber bands in each thing and paper clips, and everyone does their weird stuff. Mine was like perfect, you know, and so.
How did the money transfers go?
You know, when I was saying it was like, when you said like a per week or something, and more of a daily operation. So I would get so much money consistently. If I owed 3 to 5 million, literally the club would ask me every day, how much do you have in hand? When are you going to pick up this check? And when are you going to pick up that check? And they also would refer to the money as energy. And they would say, how much energy are you going to get today? And literally, it was a monitoring myself on a regular basis. Like, so I might have somebody bringing me 300,000 or 400,000, you know, today, or 2 or 3 people bringing me 300 or 400, or I would have an airplane coming in from a multiple state run, and it would have a few million on board. And so they were always, how much do you have? How much do you have? So it was an everyday thing. So I texted with an encrypted, PGP encrypted BlackBerry, and I was on that thing every day. You know, they were, how much do you have? How much do you do this, do that, and let's get more. And so it was a constant flow of making moves with just texting.
But you were having to turn cash over to the Sinaloa people, but it
Yep.
was daily.
Sometimes, yeah. Yep.
What's the largest amount of money you had at once, and like actually at once?
Um, maybe somewhere around just like 4.
Million.
Yeah, because like I said, a lot of times they would say, "How much do you have? How much do you have? Turn it in, turn it in." And like because it was a daily purchase,
It didn't build up.
if I'm buying 30 today, 15 today, I would shoot him 1.4. I would shoot him $1 million, or shoot him 700 grand. You know what I mean? So it was every
Who
day.
was moving the cash around for? Was it the same drivers that would, or you had separate people?
A lot of times, one person that I specifically knew, him and I would link up and meet at like a hotel, and I would throw him luggage to make it look like we're traveling and stuff like that.
Luggage full of cash.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going on for a while, and are you feeling weird about it? Does it feel unsafe? Do you feel like it's bad?
It does, yeah. It does feel like you're turning up the heat on.
And it's like you're doing more work for that than your main business.
Correct. Yeah. And it wasn't something that I even like tried to brag about or tell people about. I learned very early on that all my cannabis customers, even if in the moment some of those back then I might have been hands-on and gone to their house and just kind of, communicated a little bit, chop up small talk before we handle our business, I wouldn't mention anything about blow because, like, man, if somebody, narcs you out on that, then it's a serious problem, right? So most people that I dealt with on the cannabis level had no idea that I was moving this much blow because essentially it's a life sentence.
Yeah, for real. How long were you involved in the cocaine part?
So I did it for a few months, and I'm trying to think about where did it get hot. It got hot for us all of a sudden.
Oh, this is my issue. How much do you think they were selling those for wholesale in Canada?
Oh no, I remember their numbers. So they would call them AAA high heat, and those would go anywhere between 38,000 to like 42.
Oh, so they're
43.
damn near doubling their money.
Absolutely. So not only are they,
But you're not making much. Did you feel? I mean, they were kind of using it.
Definitely uneven. And so they're making so much in this regard as well because they're actually, the club manufactured the cannabis, right? And so it's multiple members. It's not like 1 or 2 guys. It's a massive thing. And so the club was growing Bubba Kush. And so they have those proceeds. So now they're taking that money and not only making a pretty good substantial amount of profit.
They're doubling up.
Right. Now they're taking it and they're quadrupling it. So they're making money off the Kush and the blow.
Yeah. So they're owed $5 million in the U.S., buy $5 million worth of C, and then sell it for $9 million there.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, so you said only a few months. Were you like? How long were you really heavily?
I did that for a while, and I don't know.
Like a year?
No, definitely not a year. I was rocking and rolling for some time, and then I can't remember if it was my own situation or someone around us. It got hot, and what we call hot is when like investigations and people get in trouble. So I stopped doing that, but I just kept the cannabis going.
So you did stop.
For a little while, yeah. And they said when the smoke settles, like let's go again. And then eventually they did hit me up and said, hey, it's been a while. How do you feel? Are you ready to go? We could use it. And at that point, I renegotiated my deal to where I was going to start making at least like 800 on each one, which even that was not much, but if they're buying 100 a week and then I have 3 or 4 of those guys, So I make, 20 grand, a day or something like that,
20 grand a day in profit, just middlemaning. Wow.